hastayken. Burada var.
Neydi abinin ismi ya? Şakir abi biliyorum.
Sami.
Sami.
So let's get started, guys. You're also on YouTube. And I will share this maybe in chat window. If someone joins late, they can see the previous parts. And I will close it, I think. So let's get started. So we start a bit late, guys. Sorry. So as I said, we will cover animations and transitions, and then we will see how they can be useful to enhance our web pages. So first, we will talk about animations. They are used to animate transitions from one CSS style to another one. So they just help us, to make transition from one style to another style, and this cause some animations. And animations consist of 3 components. So a style describing the CSS animation, and then we have set of keyframes that indicate the start and ends of the animation, and some possible intermediate points. So for example, you may want to move something from left to right, but in the meantime, maybe you want to add some other animations, like maybe opacity change, so you can define some intermediate waypoints. So there are, normally they used to use, I think, JavaScript driven animation techniques, but right now, mostly people use CSS animations, and they're because of some certain advantages. So first thing is they're easy to implement, to create simple animations. So you don't need to know about JavaScript, which is good. And they don't consume too much system resources, so they run smoothly. Even your system doesn't have too high capacity. And also browser can optimize the performance of the animation automatically. The browser can control the animation sequence, depending on the performance of your computer, your system. So it can automatically optimize. So for example, you can reduce the frequency update of animation in tabs that are not currently visible, right? The tabs that you are not viewing, so it can just kind of reduce the resources in those animations because you are not viewing it. So this is also another advantage for using CSS animations. So to create animation sequence, first we need to kind of configure the animation itself. We do this with the animation property. So with this one, you decide on the timing, duration, and other details of the animation. But it doesn't change the appearance of the animation. Okay, it just tells you how many times you want to run this, the duration of this animation, etc. To play with the appearance, we use keyframes, and we will cover this very soon. So here are some sub-properties of the animation. They all start with animation and dash, and then there's some other properties. So for example, we have duration. If you want to put delay, like you want to start your animation in 2 seconds, then you use delay property. It has this direction property. It can go and play in reverse direction, for example, or you can even define how many times you want your animation to play, 1, 2, or limitless, right? So you can use these properties to configure your animation in general. And then we use the keyframes actually to create the animation itself. And to do that, we use this keyframe add rule. So we have this add sign at the beginning. That's why these are called add rule in CSS. We also have these media queries. They were also add rules. Okay, these are called add rules. So each keyframe describes how the animated element should render at the given time. So you may say from start, the opacity will be 0. At the end, opacity will be 100. So these are called keyframes, and we will see some examples. And then to specify this, to indicate the specific time points, you use percentages. For example, 0% indicates the first moment of the animation, while 100 means the completion of the animation, like the final stage. And since these are the most important moments in the animation, we use actually from and then to indicate these, these percentages. So let's go and do an exercise about this to better understand it. So I will go to here and then I will publish this. So now you should be able to access this. So I will also go my Slack in here. So we will do a sliding text that goes from right to the left. And this will be the most simple one, the simplest exercise we will do today, and we will do more advanced. So I will put this here. Right now, I guess I don't have anything. No, I already have done this, so I will delete this. Sorry, guys. So we will do that. So we will do that. So we have this P paragraph, okay, indicated with P, and we want to animate this, that we want it to go from right outside of this window to the left. So what we are gonna do is we will only write some styles, okay? We won't change anything here. So we will go to style CSS file, and then since we wanna animate this P tag, we need to write this animation properties in this P tag. And I will make this a bit bigger maybe for you guys. Choose big, better. Yes. So we will just define this animation properties. As you see, when I type, it actually shows up. For example, duration, right? So we can set this, let's say 1 second or 2 seconds, doesn't matter. You could even do, as you see, milliseconds, but right now we will do it seconds. And what else? We can define also the animation iteration count here. Let's say we want it to run only once. And here we also need to indicate the animation name. This is a must property. So I will delete this. So we need to indicate some name. Okay, here I just wrote name, but we indicate this name with the keyframe. So here we will define a keyframe. Keyframes, and we will give it a name. Let's say slide to left. So here is the part where we will actually describe the animation that we want to achieve. So, but what we need to do is we need to copy this name, this kind of the animation name here. So here we will say, sorry guys, I wrote it wrong. The animation name will be this. Okay. The animation name has to be the one defined with the keyframes. So there were states, right? For example, 0% was what will happen at the beginning of the animation. We could also say from. Later I will change it to from, but for now I will keep this like this. So for example, we will first change this width from, let's say it will have 300%. Okay, it will be beyond the this window, 3 times wider. And let's say at the end of the animation, I will put 100%. Let's say its width will be 50%. So if you go ahead and run this, as you see, its width has changed from too big. As you see, there's scroll here, and then start from 300% width, it went down to 50%. But then it goes back to the original width of the P tag. So if you don't want, if you want this, for example, to stay in the 50%, you could also say here width will be always 50% except the animation. So if you run this, as you see, now it stayed at 50%. Without this, it goes back to 100%, the default for P, okay, P text. So here, instead of this, it's common to use actually from and to, okay? I just want to show you guys. So now we want to move it, right? So we will something do like this, margin left initially will be 100%. So that means this is gonna move it to the outside of this edge. Okay. You can see that. So if I run this, as you see, it starts from this edge, it went to the left. But to make sure it works always fine, here it's better to put margin left will be 0%. So if you run this, as you see now, it comes from right-hand side, goes to the left. And here's the, if you have it in big screen. So it runs only once, right? So if you say, for example, you want it always, so you can just type infinite. So if you put infinite, it will go back and forward. And you can change the duration. You can make it for some 5 seconds. Then it will go slower, as you see. So for example, we can add some other keyframes just between the start and the end. For example, we will add keyframe at, it could be anything. We will put 70% of the timeline. So this means, for example, if your animation is 100 seconds, this means when it comes to the second 75, it will begin to apply this style. Okay, this 75 means that if it is 100 seconds, when the animation comes to the 75 seconds, then it will begin to apply this style here. For example, if we say font size, here will be, let's say, okay, 300%. So let's run this. And actually, I explained wrong. So this means between the second 0 and until 75, the font size will go from the 100% default one until 300%. So it will enlarge 3 times, right? Because 300%, starting from 0 until this point. And then after this point, after the 75 seconds, it will go from 300% to default 100%. Okay, that's why here it reaches, for example, right now the 75%, and then it goes to last 25%, and then like this. Make sense? Yeah. So a bit faster.
Font size'ı başa yazdığımızda bit gibi %300 kalmaya, %200 kalmaya devam edecek.
Şuraya mı? Font size'ı.
Yok, P'nin altında.
Aynen. Oraya yazarsan mesela burada 200 yazarsan o hep 200'de kalır. Ama default is already 100%, so you don't need to say like 100%. Otherwise, you would have to put it here like. Then font size will be, I don't know, whatever you want. But we don't put, for example, 100 because we all wanted to get back to its originals. But now, as you see, it doesn't get too small. So what if we want this to move back and forward, right? It comes here and then we want it to go back to the right. So there are two options for this. So what we want to do is, so I will actually discard this. So what we want to do is on the halfway, we want to say it reads to the left, right? And then after the half of the time comes here, and then we want it to go to back to right. So what I will do is actually I will move this thing here, this two. And here I will just say margin left will be 0%, right? No, it should be margin right. So let me see. So as you see, until the midpoint of the time, it comes here, like the margin left becomes 0, right? It's here. Now from here forwards, it changed from margin left 0 to margin left 100. So that's why in the second part, it goes to the right. Make sense? Okay. But instead of doing that, we could do actually simply this. You don't have to change it. That's fine. I will do it myself. So there is this option, animation direction. Here, when you put alternate, it repeats the animation in both directions. So as you see, it goes left, and then it will play the animation in the reverse order and forever it goes there. So you can achieve this directly by changing animation direction to alternate. So now, okay, we are done with this. We will move to another exercise. So we will continue with this moving circle around. So I will open this one. Or submit. So I will go back to my code. And here, if I refresh, so you should see this moving circle around, right? This one. So let me see if I have the code already. So what we want to achieve is this. Yeah, because we have to write the code. So we will try to achieve it, okay? So you guys have which part? Do you guys have anything here?
Dignity var hocam.
Bende de burası yok galiba.
Evet.
Okay. So initially, yes, it should be fixed like this. So we will try to animate this. So first thing we will do is to move this from top to bottom, right? So how can we do that? Let's see, keyframes. Let's say square. So the midpoints has to be actually like divided into 4, right? Because it will go from top to left. This is like say 25% of the time. From bottom, from left to right, right? It's another 20% of time. So we need to divide the whole animation time into 4 pieces, right? So that means we need to write like from until 2, right? Until the final state. But between there, I think we need to put 25%, right? We also put, I think we need to put 50%, and I think 75%. So initially, it will move actually right from top left to bottom left. Correct, right? From top left to the bottom left. And so initially, we will use actually here the this top and left, bottom, right properties. So initially the top will be 0 pixels. We want it to be at the top, right? In this corner. That means top will be 0 pixel, left will be 0 pixel. And so here, actually, we will do some calculations. So if this has the width of height of 50, and if this is the width of and height of this div is 300, actually, I think, so we want to move this to the bottom here. And in this case, let's say top should be, I think in this case, 300 minus 50, I think we can try 350 pixels. Right, left will be, I think, still 0. So let's run this. It doesn't work. You guys know why? Because
it doesn't see what on screen.
yes, exactly. So we need to define, right, this animation main property, right? So in the, where do we need to provide this? We need to write this actually with the P because we want to animate this P. P is this square. So if you go your code, this P is actually the square. As Karan said, we need to provide here animation name, which will be move square, right? And we can say animation will be duration will be, let's say, 2 seconds. Animation iterate count will be infinite. So I will run this again. So now it works. Did you guys see? It goes from top to bottom all the time because iteration count is set as infinite. So we are done with this part. Now we need to do the second part, right? From here to here. So what we are gonna do is move it from bottom left to bottom right. So it will stay always at bottom. It will just move from left to right. If it's gonna stay at the bottom, so we need to put here is actually the top also 250 pixels. And this time we need to put the right, I think it should be, let's see if you put right 0, if it works. So let's see, I will run this. Did you guys see it? It just jumped, it doesn't work. Because here, if I provide left, and if I want to change the left property here, I should provide right. Actually, right 0 is correct, but in the previous one, I didn't define right property. So it cannot do transition from right property to another right value. So what I need to do is I need to provide here left, but here I need to define left should be 250, right? I will run this. Did you see it now? It works. Now we need to move it from, I think, bottom right, to top right. So the right will be the same, okay? That means left should be 250 because it will stay on the right because we will move it from bottom right to top right. That means we need to change its top property to, I think, 0. So top was 250, now it should be 0 pixels. So I will run this. Now, as you see, we have almost all of the animation. And then the final state, actually, it will reach to this point, right? So I can actually just copy and paste this. So now it worked. It's good? Okay. So now we will do even something cooler. We will do, let me find if I can find it. We will do this circus here, which is here. I found it, and then I try to understand it, and then I think I can explain to you. It looks, at least it looked a bit difficult, but actually it's not so difficult. So we'll try to do this, okay? You guys can do it through just yourself or so I publish this, okay, bouncing loading circles here. We'll do step by step. So right now, I think I shouldn't have any code. So right now, I don't have code. Seems like. You guys have this empty, right? Stats here. Okay. So then, I thought I had it included, but I didn't. So we will add some body color, like the original one. For the background will be, I thought I included, but since that I didn't. With CEIT419 F, so background color, we will change it to something like purple, as you see here. And it adds some padding, let's also add it to EM. And we will also add styles for the paragraph. For this one is actually a paragraph, so we will also style it very fast. Font will be 1 EM, so I will use this. And then here they use something operator 1. And the color will be A599 E9. And text align will be center. So we have to type font type. So you can provide all of them like this in a shorthand version of font. Okay. So you guys remember we have these 3 circles right next to each other, and they're inside the loader div. So we will make loader as a flex, and these circles will be flex items. Okay, and then we will do this justified content and line items as center. So we want them to replace in the center vertically and horizontally. So I will also go ahead and write this. So loader. So if we check our code, okay, these circles are span. They're inside this loader div. So first we will provide some should we div now? I think loader div some style. So we want it to be displayed as a flex. Justified content will be center. Then align items will go to center. So we want to put everything in the middle, in the center, horizontally and vertically for the flex.
Maybe
it's not available in I don't know. Maybe. And next, what we are going to do is, so we will turn this span text into a circle. So to do that, I will say, okay, for all span text inside loader div, right? So background will be some yellow color. Here I like the color they used. f8d000, and let's say width will be 1 em, height will be also 1 em. So I'll run this. I think the background color, right? I can adjust. So as you see now, we have this. So why do we have this? But why it looks like single thing here? Actually, here we have 3 spans, okay? That are square, so they're next to each other. It looks like a single thing. Here we have 3 span tags because they're like square, 1 em, 1 em width and height. That's why it looks like this. So if you put some margin, em 0.5 em. Now, as you see, so the first here is applied to the top and then bottom, and I think this one is applied to the left and right. So if you provide only 2 values here, the first value is applied, I think, to the top and bottom. The second one is applied to the left and right as margin. So now, as you see, they have some space between them. So last thing we need to do is just make them look like a square. So to do that, we use border radius. And then we'll say 50%. So it's going to create a perfect circles for us. So now, as you see, we have the circles. So this is the first step we are supposed to complete. So next, we will define some keyframes to create the animation. And this is bouncing order. So we will, of course, always you put from and then to, okay. And initially, what we are going to do is you want its width to start from, let's say, 0.1 em. So we want it to be small initially, and then height will be the same, 0.1 em. And opacity, we want it to be 1. And in the second part, so I will copy and paste this code, 3 lines. Width will be again 1 em, like the original. Height will be the 1 em, and the opacity will be 0.1. So the circles will get larger, smaller, and at the same time, their opacity will change. So now we want to apply this animation. So to do this, we apply it to this span, right? We want to apply this animation for each of these circles. So we can just directly go here and write animation. Again, we can use this, as you see, Rapid also suggests us this shorthand syntax, just animation property. And inside there, you just put the name of the animation, duration, and the other properties. It will automatically identify these sub-properties. Okay, you don't have to specify one by one like this. So you can just use animation here. So here for the name, so I will delete it actually. For the name, we will just copy and paste this. Once loader, for the duration, we will say 0.6 seconds. So we want it to run, I will delete this actually, infinite. And we want it to run it both directions. First forward and then backwards automatically. So this means this, okay? This alternate makes it like that. So like the way we did the sliding text from right to left and then left to right automatically. So we change this direction of the animation is alternate. So I will run this. So let's see what happens. So as you see, their width and height changes at the same time, and also their opacity changes, right? It goes from 1 no opacity. 1 means they just look as they are without any transparency, but as they approach the end of the animation, which is 2, they get more opaque. So for example, if we don't put alternate here, let's see what happens. So as you see, just plays in one direction. With alternate, it plays in both directions. So now the point is, in the original one, they were running after each other, right? The first one I was animating, and then the second one actually, and then the third one. So there was kind of order. They weren't animating at the same time. That means we need to put some delays. So the second circle should start to animate a little bit later. So to do that, what we are going to do is loader. So we want to select the second span, okay? And we want to add a delay for its animation. So we will use the end child. Second one, okay, not the first one. So we want to select the second span. And here we will just put animation delay will be 0.2 seconds. And then I'm going to copy and paste this. And then for the third span, we want the animation to delay 0.2 seconds more, which means 0.4 seconds. So if you run this, now as you see, it first animates the first one and then waits 0.2 seconds, and the second one and the third one. So they were also kind of like bouncing, right? You guys remember? So we will also add this feature. To do that, we use this transform feature. We say translate. What? It's not here. Translate. It will be 0 minus 1 EM and then 0. These are coordinates like X, Y, and Z. And so it just moves around the X, Y, and Z axes, but I think the first one, so I can't remember. I will check this. Initially, we just start from translate. Actually, should be translate 3D, guys. So we need to put 3D at the end. Initially, it is 0. Then at the end, it will transform to this point. Why this doesn't? Oops. How did you guys see it? And I mean, you can go ahead and play with these features. For example, let's say if you make it also 1 EM, I don't know what's going to happen, but we can try. Did you see now it's something different? I think this changed the x-axis. Now they go to the right, right? And I think this is the y-axis, I think. Yeah, it goes even up, right? It's y-axis. And I don't know this one. I think it's the z-axis, but the point is actually with small charts, you can do something kind of cool, right? And so for now, yeah, this is the first half. So we finished the first half. So now we will have a break. And then second break, we will start with transitions. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can let me know. But with animations, you know, you just need to find these keyframes and change from one style to the other style, depending on the time point you want to decide. You just change this, you know, this style. makes a transition from one style to another.
Keyframe'in responsive yapacağım. Güzel. Screen size'ına göre.
Nasıl?
Screen size'ına göre keyframe'in responsive yaparsın. Yoksa ayrı ayrı sayfalarda mı tanımlamak lazım? Mesela
Yani
mobil için ayrı.
muhtemelen
Yani şöyle yapmak lazım ya.
depends, ne yaptığına göre değişir. Mesela bunun için çok bir şeye gerek kalmaz. Mesela şöyle bir ufak animasyon için
Hı.
çok fark etmez ama
Ben şöyle küçülttüm de bir noktadan sonra şey yapıyor. Circle'lar böyle daralıyor. Böyle oluyor.
Aynen.
Ekstrem bir şey yani.
evet aslında o hani o kadar küçük olmaz zaten. Olabilir belki biti %1 yaparsan onu
Evet.
belki şimdi büyümesini isteyebilirsin. Ama
Evet.
o yüzden o durumda marjinleri de muhtemelen şey yaparsın şurada.
Hepsini 150
Aynen.
beğendim.
Mesela şurada bir arı var. İnternetten buldum. Şunu CSS'le yapmışlar. Şu görüntüyü CSS'le. Ve tamamen bir tutorial var. İşte bu yukarı çıkıp iniyor. Animation.
Korkunç nasıl yapacağız? Fırtına
Ama
aşağı
işte-
koyamadık.
Bu yeni bir proje. Kelime
Yani tek
vereceğiz.
Hocam şimdi nasıl soralım?
Sonra şimdi sorun bence. Here's a sample
I-
personal website. Can I share? You want to say something? Sorry.
No, I mean like when in services, I just exaggerate with things that I know. Just to
No, it's
fill in
okay. You need to
something
sell
like
yourself
16.
good, so you
Yeah.
can put everything. So here's a sample website created by Sondos. And it's responsive, so it's good. And see, she searched for some websites like portfolio websites, and then to have an idea, and then implement it here.
Nice.
Okay.
Good work.
So I think I also like it. So I think if you spend one a day or something, you will be finish this page. I think.
Oh, person, yes.
Person one, yes.
No, person doesn't. Aslında.
And I think Ishil, it was Ishil is here. Yes, Ishil, can I also share your website for the responsive site design, the other project, because I saw that you submitted. Okay, thank you. So here's another website by Ishil. This is the first project. And so here's the homepage. And I can't remember the original website issue. Because like I can see here what is this, is it an organization or something? Can you share? Okay. So this is the original one, okay?
Harbiden ya bakalım.
And I think you should share them with them. Share your design with them. So here is kind of, did you guys see it's kind of responsive for tablets?
Satsın bence.
Yes, that's what I told her. You should contact them. And that's my point actually. If you can find some non-government organization, NGOs, you can contact them to share your design. And here's the, let's say their history. It's good, I think. So more or less, you're supposed to do something like this, okay? And my suggestion would be, this header doesn't change a lot across the different devices. Maybe for the mobile users, maybe you can put this logo at the middle here, and then just under this you can just provide this, maybe. Because it looks too small, it loses its focus when the page gets too small. As you see, this is even bigger than the header parts. Okay, you can try out like when it is the mobile device. This can go in the middle, it can get a bit bigger, and then maybe you can just include these logos.
One fraction.
This is, I think, my main feedback. So, okay, so I will continue. Good job, Ishil. And Kaan, do you want me to show yours as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's continue with the transitions. So now we will cover, in the second half, we will cover the CSS transitions this time. So it's different than the animations. So it allows you to change a specific property smoothly for a given situation. So for example, it has several properties. So with the transition property, you indicate which property you want to apply the animation. So you need to list them explicitly, okay? And an element can have many properties. So with transitions, you have to indicate which style of which property of the element you want to apply the transition. So you can also add some delay for transitions. You can define, similar to animations, you can define the duration of the transition. And there's also this timing function. So you can kind of define specific transition type for the elements. So it can be, for example, quick at the beginning, slow at the end. So there are many options to apply transitions. So to use transitions, we will work on an exercise. So what you need to do is actually simple. You have to specify at least two things to create a transition effect. First, you need to indicate the CSS property you want to add an effect, and then the duration of the effect. So let's go ahead and apply this in practice. So I will go my Replit. Here we will have these transition examples. So I published it. Are you guys gonna apply for master or something?
Yurt dışı.
Turkey, Erasmus Mundus. It's for master.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. So please go ahead and click on the fourth item here in the Replit is transition examples, guys. Did you guys see? The transition example, okay? Let's go and click the fourth one. There is a quiz questions about this. So we will have quiz, okay? Today we'll have quiz. So now, as you see, we have actually here 4 or 5 exercises that we want to implement. So first thing is we will animate this one. Okay, this one is, I think, so they all have these div elements. So first one is div example 1. And as you see, div example 1 has this, styles to make it look like a square, right? Width, height, and some background color. So what we want to do is when we use our mouse cursor to hover it, we want it to make its width higher, larger. We want to make a transition from its original state to do this to the right hand side. We want to extend it. So to do that, what we are going to do is so we will first add this over pseudocode, I think, selection. So this means when someone mouse over this div, so I will put this here actually, we wanna, for example, change its width to 300 pixels. If I run this, if I mouse over, as you see, it works. It makes its width 3 times more, which is fine. But we want to have a transition between these two styles. Style is here's the width, okay? So to do that, what we need to do is we write transition. And we say, okay, we want to make transition for this property width, and we want this to last 2 seconds. And that's it. So now I will run this. If I mouse over, now as you see, there's some smooth transition. And here we cannot put, these points, time points. We cannot say, okay, in the 50% we will do something else. No, we can't do this. Okay, here you just make transition between the initial state of the width, so initial value for the width, and then the final.
The same way that I used to for my list. When you hover on my,
There's a line, right? Yeah, I was going to ask. So you apply.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to tell you, like, you use some transitions already.
İki tane transition yazınca çakışıyor hocam. Bunu nasıl yapacağız?
Why
Mesela
you
ben hover'ın altına width ve height'ı ekledim. Üstte width yazdığımda height direkt uygulanıp aşağı iniyor.
I think you can add like height.
Ha, virgül var.
I think so.
Yok.
No, it doesn't work. There is an option for it, so you will check. Or just without this, and then seconds, and then I will also add this here. I think we have this example. Wait, we will do it.
Okay.
But I want to try first. No, it didn't. But we will figure it out. We will do this.
Tamam.
Okay, now I found it.
Virgül
So you have to put first this one, and comma, and then the second. So this is actually the next text I want to do. So you can apply, transition to multiple properties by using this syntax. So first property, this the duration of the transition, and the second property and the duration of the transition. And then we will continue with the second one. So it says create a 4-second font size and color transition with a 2-second delay. And then it says easy out time function, and then we will see what is this. So this is the example 2 here, second exercise. So here we just need to add actually the hover or as we did before. So transitions, take place based on some user action. It could be click, it could be hover, or it could be something else. But there has to be some user action. And here we will add the hover. So first, for example, we want to change the color to it was originally blue, so we're going to change it to red. And font size is 14. We want to make font size to, let's say, 30, 36, whatever. So if I run this, so this is going to apply this, style, as you see, because we defined for over action, we define some styles. This is fine. So now we want to do some transition, right? So instead of defining like in a single line like this, you can do it in a separate way as well. And so here we say first transition property, right? So there will be 2 properties. One is the font size, another one is the color. So we are good. And the duration we want to add is transition duration. It says, I think, 4 seconds, right? Yes, I will put 4s. And delay, so it wants some delay as well. So we'll say transition delay will be 2 seconds. So we will run this. I will mouse over, and it didn't work, or maybe I should wait a little bit more. Yes. So you need to wait 2 seconds so that then your transition will work. So I will add, I think, 1 second delay. It works fine. And one thing we will cover here is differently. We will say transition timing function. So which is here. So here we will choose easy out, ease out. So let's see what happens. I don't know if it changed something, but most probably change some how to say, maybe initially it's slow, later it's faster, maybe easy,
slow at the end.
right? Slow at the end. Easy in, for example.
And from the beginning. Like, don't be slow from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
from-
Now at the end it's faster, right? And actually there is a nice website here, easings.net, and I think seems like it's a important thing to explore, because I saw many pages that indicates, these things. Like, for example, there are so many options that you see here. It shows how it animates. easy in parts makes it a lot faster. Did you guys see at the end? So is it possible to apply this here? I don't see so much difference here, but so as you see, there are so many things you can do. Like this is like you can even create like bouncing, you know, bouncing effect and many things here. Yes.
Hocam şu transition property dediğimiz konu ne işe yarıyor?
Transition property indicates which property you want to make transition. So here is the, for example, initial value for font size, and then in the hover, we want to change font size, right? So we say, okay, for the font size, we want a transition from 14 to 36 in a smooth way. So if we don't put, for example, was on here the sorry, count here the font, then this is gonna, as you see, it didn't change the. It didn't change the color. As you see, it only applied transition for the color.
Ben ikisini sileyim diye aslında.
Nasıl?
I delete both of the color and the font size, the entire line, but it still completes the transition without any problems.
In which one
Animations
do you see this one or this one? You delete this one.
Both of them. Transition property, I completely delete that line.
And I think in this case, maybe it applies, when you don't indicate, it applies to all properties. No? Yes, that's the default setting. If you don't indicate, it applies to all properties you have here. But with this one, you can select. For example, here, I only apply for color, right? Okay, and check what happens. If I mouse over, it didn't affect the font size. There's no transition. And now as you see, only color change. Okay, so you can select, you know, specific properties. Maybe you will have many properties here, but you don't want to do transition for all of them. So with this one, you can apply, you know, you can indicate for which properties you want to apply transition. And so, and now we will do the, let me see. I think I will skip this one, and then to save time, I will do this one, the last one. And so we will kind of create a kind of menu effect, right? When the mouse goes over this, we want to change the background color, and then background color, we want to make it lighter, and then the text, we want to make it dark, right? So this is a kind of typical example in menus, right? So for example, you mouse over this, kind of reverse the fore color and the back color. So we'll just do this for this kind of menu, and it's gonna be the, I think the fourth one. So as you see, we have this nav. Inside this nav, we have this anchor links. Okay. And what we wanna do is for these links, which are displayed as a button here, we'll add hover. And then for the hover, what I'm going to do is very simple. I will copy and paste this background color and color. So I want to kind of reverse them. So background color will be FFF, and then the text color will be 333. So if you run this, you mouse over, that is fine, not so bad. But what if we want to add transition, right? So to do that, what we need to do is transition with a property will be, you can just indicate also all, okay? And you can say the duration, basically, transition duration, and here you would put something short, I think short time here. Then let's run this. So as you see, if you mouse over, now we have a nice effect. nice transition between the colors and looks like a nicer menu. So last thing we will do is, for example, we want to move this circle. When we click somewhere here, we want to move circle from its original location to the where we click. And we don't want this happen, like sharp. We don't want it to transition from its original location to the location where we click. So we have some, this is the space. This defines this square, okay? And here is the ball. Actually, it's if you go to the file, these are kind of both of them are div, okay, with classes space, which is this area where the ball is gonna move, and we have the another div whose ID and class are also ball. And somehow someone is writing in Skype. You can see. So let me see. So just quick example to start with. So we want to change the location of the ball by over. So, and what we want to do is use this transform property, and here you provide translate x to change its x location, 30 pixels, and just next to it, you put space and then write translate y to move it in the y axis. And we say, okay, move it 30 pixels more. So if you run this, go to the end, if you mouse over, as you see, it moves, right? 30 pixels to the right and left. That's why it goes like this direction. But the point here is that we have to we want to get this actually new X and Y locations from mouse click. And in this case, we have to use JavaScript. But before that, here I want to add transition already. So this is gonna apply to transform property, and it's gonna take 1 second. So if you run this, and if you mouse over, you can do transition.
Transform all objects. Transform all objects.
I know, that's why. So right now it works fine, right? It do transition, but just goes 30 pixels to the right and to the left, and that's it. But we have to get the coordinates from our mouse click using JavaScript. So just go click here, script.js. And so first we need to get the element in our JavaScript. So to do that, we use the document that get element by ID. Did you guys see? And here we need to provide the ID of the element we want to get. And if we check our index.html, this class, like this ball square, has the ID of ball. So that's why we gave it an ID. And if we write ball here, it will access to this element. And we will be able to make some operation on this circle just using JavaScript. So this ball variable references to this div here in our HTML. And so here another thing we need to do is we need to add event listener that listens to click events. Okay, and then here you need to write function, open close parentheses. So this is the first syntax, first part of the syntax. So we say, like, whenever click events happen, run the function, this function, and we will define this function right now. Okay. And if you don't add a listener, then JavaScript won't listen this event. So if you want to add and some operation you want to perform based on the user click, you have to add this as a listener in the JavaScript. Otherwise, it won't do anything. And for this function, there is a specific special parameter we pass event. So this holds some information about the event itself, about the click, for example. So this event actually will help us get the X and Y location of the click. And here I will put just open and close curly braces. And now we will define this function. So what we are gonna do is, so normally you can get this event and client X. So this gets the location, X location of where you click. Okay, this event client X. Okay. So you could even like console log if you write this. Okay, and you can also write this console X Y if I don't remember wrong. So if you run this, so I will go on my page here. So just in case you want to see it again. And if I go to my F12, I press, and as you see here, there's console, right? So if I click somewhere, as you see, it prints directly locations where as you guys see, it shows up here. Okay, it's fine.
No,
Yes, you can open new tab. So basically, with this event, we can get the X and Y location of where we click. But now what we need to do is we need to put this information right inside, for example, in our style. We need to put this information with this, right? Here we need to pass these values. But there is no way to directly pass these values to here. In CSS, we cannot define any variables to anything. So we need to apply these styles directly inside the JavaScript. And one way to do this is, so we have this bow object here, right? It has this style property. Under the style, it will show you all styling options, right? Background color, all the things we have been using. Padding, margin, whatever you want. So you can change them directly in JavaScript. And what we are going to change is the transform, right? And this is going to be equal to, you guys remember this in our style sheet. It's going to equal to translate this value, X value, and translate Y value. So we need to create this, okay? Create this text in this JavaScript. Then assign it to transform property. So it was translate X, right? First, it has a parenthesis, and then it has the closing parenthesis with PX. So between here goes the event dot client X. And we need to add this to the other translate Y style, right? So this only creates this part. It creates this part. Translate X, and this gets it from the click events. You guys see? Please translate X in parentheses, X coordinate of where the user clicked, and we set this to the transform property of the bow. So all these styles are accessible in JavaScript. And we will do the same, repeat the same thing, but we have to append it to the end, right? So basically what you can do is just plus equal, right? To append the new string to the end of this one. And so you can this time write translate Y, right? Plus at the end we need to close it with PX and parentheses. So as you see, opening parentheses here and then closing one here, and between here we need to provide this time event click Y. So we kind of change the style of the ball div using JavaScript. This is all we have done. If I run, I don't know if it's gonna work. It works. Maybe you see it now, it works fine. There is, I don't know, sometimes cause some problems, but I can. Didn't work. Okay, let me see. Did you guys add this one? And just before we finish, I think most probably in the code, right? Sanmıyorum.
Ne diyordu sanki hocam?
Belki de diyor. JavaScript bilgim açıkçası çok üst düzeyde değil.
Tek tırnak kullanıyorlar.
Try to use single quotation. So.
Eşitleri koyduk mu? Buraya. O zaman sınıfesine mi?
Now, did you guys also put this class here?
Volkan'ın çok aşağı gidiyor da.
Hepsi direkt sayfanın aşağısına kaçıyor.
Also en azından hareket ediyor. At least it
İnsanın
moves.
büyüklük yapsana. Ya, neyse.
No, this is just for exercise. It's fine. It doesn't have to work perfectly.
Ama yani farklı yapmış bir şey yok. Evet. Anladım. Ama biraz aşağı mı? Hiçbir yok.
Ne gibi bir ilerlemiş.
Okay, no worries. We'll check later.
Kötü mü?
O böyle.
Evet, bu orada kaldı.
Hover'ı çıkarırsak ne olur benimkinde bakayım bir. Sanki gerek yok artık. Hover'a bence gerek yok. Çünkü artık onu JavaScript yaptığımız için bir JavaScript şey yapıyor. Hani style'ını değiştiriyor. Transform'unu JavaScript'te değiştiriyoruz. Burada transition olduğu için we will check after class, no worries. And we will have one more thing.
Buna sen iyi oldu.
So as the last thing, we will do this. Did you guys see?
Wow.
It's actually super easy to do, but when you see, it's like wow, right?
Yeah.
Next week I will work on hamburger menu. And then we will do it together next week. I wish I did actually about hamburger menu today, but anyways. So, okay, after this one, we will continue with the next one, but don't worry about this a lot. At least if you can understand the logic here, right? The point is that we change the it's X and Y coordinates in JavaScript. That's the old thing. And to make it react to the click event, we use this event listener, indicates click event, and then we describe what we want to happen with the click event, okay? And so let's continue with the last one. So I will go and publish it very fast. So here's the last one, animated CSS menu. If you refresh your page, if you just go ahead and click Start Project. So if you run this, you will get this, okay? So we will convert this to what I have shown just using CSS. So this is the code without CSS. We will apply CSS to, add these animations. And just to get an idea about the structure, so they're all inside a div whose class is name. And in each element is, for example, the first one is inside the box. They're all, the parent div has the box class, but beyond that, they also have these specific class names. First one is home, second one is about, and so on. And inside this parent div, they have the a tag. Inside a tag, they put the this home, and then next to it they put an image inside this parent. So this is the main structure they did. So I just copied their example. So, and then we will apply these transitions to make it look cool. So we will first apply some styles. Okay, do you guys remember all of them are inside the div called with the class named nav? So for the nav, we want to display it as a flex. This is the first thing we are going to do. So now as you see, they look next to each other, which is fine. And after this, if you remember, all these components are inside the div parent div whose one class name is box. So all of them has the class name box. You guys see box, box, box, and so on. All of them has a box. Beside that, they also have this specific services for the last one. Another one is about, and so on. Another one is home. They also have these additional class. You can differentiate between them using this class name. So I will go back to my style. So first, for the box, we want to give a specific height and width for all elements. So that's why I use the box class name. So width will be 20%, and height will be 200 pixels. Okay, we will change so much things. To see the actual change, we will apply some background color, but we will apply it for each one differently. So for the box whose class is also home, right? We will say background color here will be, we will use in this time our GBA property. And here we define just the red component separately, which will be 0, green will be 0, blue will be 0. But good thing here is that you can define also the transparency. So transparency for the first one will be 0.0. It's actually black color with some transparency. So if you run this, as you see, the first one is now has background color. And then what I'm going to do is I will copy and paste this. For the second one, it will be the home div, parent div. And for this one, the transparency will be a bit less. So it should look darker, right? As you see now, it's a bit darker. And then we will continue this way. I will copy and paste this multiple times. We have 5 items: home, about, portfolio, services, and content. And from 0.4, then 0.5, 6, 7. So we run this. Now as you see, they have a slightly changing background color with the different tones of gray. So since they're transparent, if you have some images in the background, actually this image will be actually kind of apparent. So now what we are going to do is we will change these links. We will give some style for these links. So we will make them centered with white color without underline. So these links are actually, if we go our style, here. These links are here, right? Just inside the box div. So what we are going to do is, so inside the box div, we select the all links, and then color will be, let's say, white. So to delete the underline, we use text decoration to the none. We set it to the none. So this just, discards the underline in the links. This text decoration, when we set it to none, then there will be no underlines. And then we want to align them to the center. And we will, let's say, height will be 100%. And then we'll add heading to the top. Here I added 20%, I think. So let's see what happens when we run this. So I think the text align didn't work, right? It didn't center it. To make it work, I think we need to displace it to, I think, below. So now, yes, the text center has worked. And also, if I right click on the home, is the link. Now, as you see, since we set it as block, it occupies all the space here. Okay, did you guys see? It looks like a block. Normally, a link will occupy only the text. Okay, since we set, because inline element, to prevent this, we set its display as block. And inside these links, we also have these, right? These spans, which has the image. So initially, we don't want to show the images, right? We want them to be somewhere else, I think under the boxes. So to do that, what we are going to do is for the box spans inside the boxes, spans contains the images. So we also want to display them as block. And we want them to be positioned relative to the it's containing box here. Okay, so they are going to be positioned relative to the boxes. And we say top will be 100%. It means they will be placed just under here. And we also want them to be placed in the center. Fixed align will be center and the center. So now, as you see, they placed under these links, right? Which is fine, but actually we want to hide them right now. Initially, we don't want to display them. And to do that, we use the overflow hidden property. So for the box we have here, right? So what we are going to do is we'll say any content that overflows, that goes beyond the boxes, we want to hide them. Now, as you see, the images will disappear here because we say any content that goes beyond the box title, it should be hidden. If you don't have this, then the images will be displayed here. So right now, I think our menu is more or less ready to animate, to apply some transitions. So what we can do first is, for example, these spans, which contains the images, their top is 100%, right? But what we want to do is, when we hover the spans, we want to move them to the top a little bit. So what we are going to do is box over span with the top, for example, 20%. So this means change the property of the span tag when someone hovers on the box. Okay, this means this. Apply this style to the span when we hover on the box. But on the span that belongs to that box. Okay, the span that is inside this box that the user hovers. So when we hover, as you see, nothing has happened. Hmm? And this is another, okay. Okay, good point. Yes. So as you see now, they actually appear. Okay, that means like you guys understand this syntax more or less. Okay. Now we want to actually do the transition, right? So what we are going to do is here we will apply transition to the span. Here as a property, what should I write? You want to change actual top, right? So I will write top. And then this happens in 1 second. So I will run this. Now as you see, images shows fine, right? With the zipper. So now what we want to do is, so when we do mouse over here, you guys remember this should extend, this above menu should be a bit larger, the others are a bit smaller, narrower. So to do that, for example, first what we want to do is for the nav menu, so they're all inside this this nav. Someone is writing me, I see in Skype. So, do you guys remember this nav is the container div that has all these elements? So we say when we mouse over it, all the boxes inside there should have the width of 10%. Normally they have 20%, right? So this works fine. But in addition to this, what we want to do is we also want to animate the one we mouse over. We want that one actually larger, right? The rest should have 10%, but the other one that we mouse over should have 60%. So nav and the boxes inside nav, the one we hover, right? This time, did you see we changed the location to hover here? For this one, the width will be 60%. And the rest will have 10%. That means actually 4 of them will have 10%, one will have 60%. In total, they sum to 100. So as you see, right? That's it. And the last thing we want to do is actually for the box right here. So we are here changing the box, right? Their width, right? We are changing the box. So we want to add this transition attribute for the box class here. So what we are going to do is transition. So we are changing its width. We want to make this in 1 second. So right now, if I mouse over, now as you see, the transition is smooth. Did you guys understand more or less what we have done? Okay. I think it requires some practice. And it's already 35.
Hocam şeyler var ama. Mesela bu
Sende var. Bende TV yazmış.
So last two things, and then we will finish, and then I will check your computers. So just a highlight between the animations and transitions. and there will be a lot of quiz questions from this table. So, first thing is, so animations starts from initial to final step, but you can put some intermediate steps, right? But for transitions, there is no intermediate steps, and transitions runs only once, right? As we have done so far. But for animations, you can have some loops and identify how many iterations you want for your animation. And transitions require some trigger, right? Like mouse over, mouse click, but animations can be triggered automatically. And they generally run forwards, the transitions, right? When they're triggered. But in animations, you can have alternative directions, forward, reverse, or both of them at the same time. Transitions are easier to use with JavaScript. Animations, they're not easy to work with JavaScript. And transitions are used best for the creating a simple change from one state to another. But for animations, you generally use them to complete more series of movements. Okay, so these are the main differences. And if you want to do more practice, there's a YouTube tutorial in which they create these just using CSS styles and they animate it. And so there are so many crazy people in the world. But I think if you like it, you may enjoy it a lot, I think. So I think it's around 11 minutes tutorial. So at the end, I wonder if they share should they share the source?
Nasıl olur sonra?
Like just go up and down, but its teeth, its tongue, everything is in CSS.
Harbi kadar çok var.
Aynen. Ya da antenleri oynayabilir. So okay, and they share the source code. If you have interest, you can have a look. So that's all for today, guys. And I will be around a little bit a while if you have any questions. So see you guys next week. Yes, I will check. So any questions from Zoom participants? Are you guys still with me? If you don't, we just end today's class. So, hocam kodun altlarını tekrar. So I will put my code on the screen just in case someone wants to still see it. This is the last one we have done. The last one. Yes, you can submit the URL of the last one in the class. So see you guys next week.